all of a sudden it hit me. I chose this. So I chose the parents. I chose my circumstances. I chose to be in poverty. I chose to be a survivor of other traumas. I chose to be an addict. Then I heard somebody say, just like you had said earlier, our mess is our message. And then I thought, okay, if this is true, what are you trying to tell me to do?
Okay, welcome everyone. I am really excited to lead in our Diamond Insights with the lovely, talented, and just absolutely inspirational Dawn Finn, who had the privilege of getting to know during the pandemic with one of my colleagues, Alex Zach. And we started getting into conversations around everything that was going on and how to serve. And Dawn, that's one thing that I recognized right away from you is just the desire to just be better, to be in service. Just how transparent, how courageous, how just vulnerable you are. It's such an inspiration, and it's actually refreshing because, as Bob would say, most people are dishonest and not authentically who they are. And so when you made the decision to come and study with myself and Diamond Mind in Bob's Legacy, I was thrilled because I knew if you started studying this material, it would just like quantum leap your results. And I've had the privilege of watching you grow. And so I'm really excited to introduce you today. I have Christopher from the team, Diamond Mind coach and advisor here with me today. And we are going to be sharing, Dawn, just your story and your journey and your insights, especially at a time, and we were discussing this before we even jumped on this, where we are living on a planet where there is a lot of people that are suffering. There's a lot of people that are facing, challenges in mental health and in addiction, homelessness. And I truly believe that that is the real pandemic. And I think, Dawn, it's yourself and other leaders that are really creating a new model in this area. And I've seen that in you, seen that in your work. And you're just a matter of fact. And I think we need more people that are just matter of fact. But the other thing that stands out is you are walking your talk. So when I say it's an absolute privilege and honor to be here with you, it absolutely is. So my first thing here, Dawn, as we jump into this, is I would love for you to maybe share where you were before started to study yourself and study these practices and where were you? Because I think there's a lot of people that can relate to that place of just being stuck or feeling like there's just no hope. And I think that that's going to create an impact here for those that are in that space, because I know that, if you can do it, there's so many people that are going to just feel inspired through your share. So I'm going to just hand that over to you.
First of all, thank you for having me. And I know when this is over, I'm going to have a little cry for that introduction and just really absorb all of that internally. You know, I think that the biggest thing is, for my life is that it started in addiction. I grew up in addiction. I had many lessons throughout life. So there's one story that really particularly hits me a lot, and it was just right after I got sober. But it shows the depths of where I was at that point. Is that my son? So I was on food stamps. I got into college. I was trying to figure out how to live life because I kept asking myself, and I kept hearing this nudge, and I had no idea where this nudge was coming from. There was more to life. There was more to life. There was more to life. And that little nudge kept me going. But this particular morning, I spent the last of my food stamps. So when we talk about even just our mindset, think about the poverty that I, at that point in that past, was feeling. And then my son, who was trying to be so helpful, picked up that gallon of milk to help pour it, and it dropped on the floor. As a parent, and I know, I think I've even shared this story with you, I wanted to scream. I wanted to just like, what the hell just happened? And then the thought came to me, how about playing the milk? And to be honest, I didn't even know how to do that. I did not know how to parent in a way that would allow this child to understand mistakes happen, because I didn't know even for myself. So, really, my story is etched in living the experience and then growing through these pieces of, not sure what to call them, these pieces of life, the moments of life. And then I walk through that and then I arise above it. I think the biggest thing I want people to know really about that is all negative situations that we assign it, they're really, that's the breakthrough. That's where we start to find the healing in the pain. So, I mean, that's the biggest thing. I could finish on that one because I could talk for hours. So,
Yeah, and I think, Dawn, and we're going to include, your credentials and links and different things about you for sure. But this is an area that, you moved into. I always think like your mess is your message. And
mhm.
so you've spent a significant amount of time working with people now that are in similar situations to where you were at. And I think you celebrated how many years of sobriety? I mean, which is a big deal.
32 years, 2025, July 19th.
32 years. Yeah. And one thing I love, I always think if there's, one thing, that you'd love to share with people that people wouldn't know. And I remember when you shared with us that, you were a dancer. Why do you share? It's just so cool because, where you were.
I used to work with Prince, MC Hammer. So in a past life, I used to say, although it's this lifetime, I was a professional dancer. I enjoyed every moment of that. But I did have a moment when Prince actually came to me and said, if you want to continue dancing, you need to get your shit together and quit using.
Mhm.
And so I left. And I, of course, who wouldn't be angry? Oh my God, But it was something that struck me. And I always thought at some point I'd be able to go back and tell him, but my life took a different turn. And I'm really grateful for where I'm at today.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. Christopher, do you have anything that you want to add to this or ask Dawn?
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, so what I like to just talk about real quick is that in through Diamond Consulting, Bob always talks about how there's two types of areas that help change things. There's those for our programming. So there's the environmental and then there's the emotional. And, with Dawn, she obviously went through a lot of emotional things in her life. She's been through that roller coaster. And it's sometimes it's that hitting rock bottom or hitting that area where you feel like this is it. This is where it is. I have to make those changes. I have to work towards it. You start to realize to make those changes and make those new habits and to grow from that. And, it doesn't matter where your life is, for some people, it could be, okay, you spilt the milk. It's completely fine. But obviously with Dawn's situation, it was deeper. It was deeper than that because she just used obviously the last of her food stamps. So it was a different mindset. It was a different shift. And I'm very proud of her. Throughout this time, I watched her even grow during this time of even getting to know her and to connect with her in wonderful and beautiful ways. And she continues. But one thing that I would like to ask is where you see yourself in your self-image from before and now. And truly, how far have you gone to expand yourself as connecting with you as the soul self you are, and how that helped you change?
So the first thing is confidence. I came with a victim mindset, and that was in the past. But today, I can see that when it pops up, and I can quickly shift. If I had not had that ability, and there were quite a few things that happened, but really it's all about material that I bring in. And that's really comes to even with Tara. So that same son that spilt the milk in 2023 took his own life. At that moment, Tara had asked me to lean in, and I had to ask her, what did that mean? I had to figure out what that meant because I really was teetering. I didn't even know if I liked life anymore, to be honest with you, when this happened. So, are there a lot of emotional impacts? Oh my gosh, but they were outward things that I really thought they were mine. They were inward things. And so I had to figure out that navigation. Tara then said, do you want to lean in or do you want to take this time off? When she said that leaning in meant really growing and walking through this and not alone, I took that time. That was a very special time. I actually believe that God put us together at that particular moment, that He had us build this relationship for that particular moment in time. And I dove in. I dove in head first and I wasn't looking back. And what that meant, I had to have radical self awareness, radical self honesty, radical just in that this is my shit and I need to really work on me. But the part that was really grateful is that I wasn't alone. She couldn't come in and fix the way I seen myself as a mom or as a friend. All she could do was give me the information, kind of hold my hand at times. But then I had to process it. I had to work for it. And I absolutely love that. If you were to ask any one of my friends, they would tell you that I'm the woman who gets punched in the gut. That's the disappointment. I wake up, I brush my knees off, and let's move forward. I hope I answered all of what you were asking, Christopher.
Yeah, and I remember this because you'd already made the decision to move forward and start studying yourself and studying the laws and working with, of course, Bob's legacy and with Diamond Mine. And, this has happened quite a few times. You're not the only one. And I've just gotten better at, asking better questions because it was such an emotional impact. And I think even going back to, that whole spilled milk, and where you were back then, it was like there was so much survival. It was
Mm-hmm.
like, so this was a difference between like surviving and now making the decision to thrive in your life. And I really believe, and I think you would agree, that life isn't happening to us, but it's happening through us and for us.
Yes.
And I I think like in your situation, I remember it was just so devastating, and that's where I was like, I'm here for you either way. Let's lean in, or if you need to just kind of lean out, whatever you need, I'm here. But when you made the decision, because it does start with a decision, and recognizing that this is our lives and that unfortunately life isn't easy and we're going to have losses, we're going to have failures, we're going to lose people. And I always say none of us are getting out of here alive anyways. So, but when you made that decision and you said, that's it, I'm leaning in. I knew you were ready to lead. I knew you were ready to move out of survival into thriving and really making that impact. And, this is where we kind of go from 3D thinking and living to 4D, because I believe we're all teachers and students for each
Mhm.
other, anyways. Um, but, you know, isn't it interesting how once we make a decision, and I remember distinctly your decision to take the lead before this even happened. And then it was, right? It was another like knockdown that I mean, it would have been so easy to give up. And I think there's a lot of people out there that can relate to this, especially at times right now. It's so easy to feel like we're a victim. It's so easy to feel like God is against us, or that the cards are against us, or no matter what we do, we can't get through it. But, Dawn, you're a real testimony to taking, what's that saying? When life gives you lemons, make lemonade. How can I
Oh,
make
hell yeah.
something better out of this? That's what you did, Dawn, and that's what you continue to do. And I knew, like Bob even said, that when someone makes a decision to take the lead in their life, regardless of what's going on, because we know that we got to stop living from those circumstances. And although it's absolute shitty, and it sucks that we have to lose people we love throughout this process, and experience failure and losses, it's all for us. Um, you know, I think that a lot of people are experiencing this right now. And I think we are going to lose a lot of people. I think we're seeing it even before our eyes, because the
Yes.
fastest way to control mass consciousness is through fear. But
Mhm.
you leaned in, you leaned into faith. Now, if there's someone that's watching this, and of course, I mean, your story's so big. You got a book in you, girlfriend. Like, you got a book in you, you got a movie in you. Yeah, there's just so much here, and we don't have the time to get right into it. We're going to bring you back again and again. I know we are. But if there's someone that's watching this that can relate to, your share around loss, around mental health, around addiction, what would you want to say to that person? And I know these are kind of your clients. This is what you
Right.
do. What would you say?
Well, first, I would say that you're not alone. And I think that that's the biggest thing is that we tend to hide it because we haven't figured out that there are other people who have been there. And that's really where my business and what I love to do every day begins. Is I've been there. I've been in the trenches. I'm a partner. I'm not going to do it for you, but I am going to partner with you. This is a time that even when you're scared, you can share that. There are times I'm still scared. Those are the emotions that we're dealing with as far as it's how do you want to live your life and then the work that you have to put into it. I love using this example as far as partnering with. So here, most services and therapists, it's the talk therapy, it's all over, it's a power over thing. You think that they're the expert of your life. Now, granted, they do have some education and there is a point for them. But what I do is because I've lived it, I come alongside of you and then we discuss where you want to go in life. So we become a partner in your process. That's actually what you did for me, Tara, is you became the partner in my process. So that is what I give you. That is what we do, one step at a time. And hands down, you may not think that you're worth it at this moment, but your life, somebody's waiting for your story to help them. So, how can I help you bring your story out so then you can turn around and help them?
I absolutely love that. And it is so true. I keep thinking of, like, Bob would always say, right? Like, the purpose in living is to serve. And everything in your life, like your health, your wealth, your happiness, everything is a reflection of, first of all, you knowing who you are, doing your work. I mean, that's why we're here, is to do our work,
Right.
and your ability to be in service to something bigger than yourself. We're just going
Mhm.
through a money mindset mastery. I always remind people is that, like, money is just a reflection of the good that you're doing. So ultimately, we all want to get rich. And we are rich, but we just have to open ourselves up to that infinite
Yes.
potential that's
Yeah.
within us. And I think that this is the thing, like, is there's a lot of programming that's really negative, that is rooted, like Christopher was saying, in the genetic and the environmental programming. Even when we look at this population, which unfortunately there's a lot of judgment, there's a lot of separation, um, there's a lot of just obviously coping, and unfortunately we're not fixing the problem because we're pumping
Mhm.
like billions of dollars into this, It's just like the diet industry, another great example. So we have a lot of really great people that are doing the best they can, trained, but when you look at it, it's obviously not working. There's
Right.
So what are your thoughts around that?
Well, I absolutely love this question because I still had somewhat, even many years. So at 5 years sobriety, I asked myself, this is all there is. And I wanted something more. And then I think I was sober about 14, 15 years when we moved to Minnesota from Iowa. And I read this book. A friend of mine gave it to me, The Power of Intention by Dr. Wayne Dyer. I cannot tell you when I heard the verse or the page when he talked about that I chose my life on earth. Oh, I was ready to argue. I was ready to fight back. I was like, what the hell is he talking about? I'm driving down the road, gripping my wheel, calling him some names. And then I went, wait a second. Why does this feel like it's the truth? And so I listened to that for 30 days on a CD because I was driving to work. I had a minimum of 40 minutes to travel. And so I kept listening to it and listening to it. And I'm going to say maybe a year later, all of a sudden it hit me. I chose this. So I chose the parents. I chose my circumstances. I chose to be in poverty. I chose to be a survivor of other traumas. I chose to be an addict. Then I heard somebody say, just like you had said earlier, our mess is our message. And then I thought, okay, if this is true, what are you trying to tell me to do? And that is when my life changed completely. That's even in my personal relationship with my husband when our fighting even tended to stop because all of a sudden I realized we were on the same team. We weren't adversaries. You know, I didn't need to make him understand me. Eventually he would understand me. And it was all from that book and that page.
You know, I find that so funny that a lot of people, they always tell me the same thing you just said, that they get irritated and upset knowing that they created this life. And just going back real quick before we get further into that is, there are no such thing as coincidences. We are literally here for a reason. And, the people, our audience and our friends that are listening to this recording, you're here for a reason. There's a reason for everything. And I find it so interesting because when it comes down to us creating our own lives, people all the time tell me, Christopher, if I've created this life, then why should I set my intentions for this? Or why should I do that? Or am I creating a life that I actually truly wrote out? And the answer is yes. Everything that you are doing right now, your soul feels that. It connects with it. And that's why when you said, why do I feel like that is right? Because your soul knows the answers. Your soul knows the next steps that are supposed to happen for you. It's just that intuition that we have to connect with. And I find that very powerful. But when it comes down to it, we all have to understand that we are those co-creators. So even though we have written our lives out and we know what we want to learn from, because that's what life is, one big lesson, we are co-creators. So we're able to create that if we truly in tune with our higher self and allow ourselves to grow and expand. And that's what Diamond Consulting's for, is to help you guys understand all of that, that growth, yourself, who you truly are, and we want to help you connect with all of that.
If you are enjoying this conversation, make sure to like, share, and subscribe.
So, when you fully are aware of that, you're growing, you're expanding. And
Mhm.
I'm very proud of you, first of all, for that. But the question I have for you now is, we always talk about how we have goals to set. Where would you see yourself within the next 3 years?
Oh, oh, I run the leading family orientated peer support agency. We do preventive as well as afterwards. So if you do have active using, we're here for you. So I like that because I think that if we can hit children at a younger age, and I don't mean literally hit, but if I can share the information, we could shift their future and they don't have to make the same mistakes that their parents made or I made. And not that our parents are wrong. That to me was one of the best gifts I ever received was when I realized my mom and dad just did the best that they could with what they had. And again, that's another healing thing. But that's really where I want to come from is that's all we're doing is trying to do that. So for me, my goals are great. I will be, no, hold on. I am running $1 million business plus. We're serving over 300 people annually. I am helping people. This is my service. I'm helping people in the beginning, but even 5 to 10 years when they're like looking at, is this all there is? Because sobriety comes in seasons. Addiction, recovery, I like to say recovery and wellness, that comes in sections. So not everybody is in the same season. And so there's different types of level of coaching for them. That's what we're offering from preventive to having been sober 20 years, 30 years. And what do we do in between that? People who've actually lived it and working together. I do see us leading the way. Now, I'm not going to say treatment isn't necessary. Treatment is a great opportunity. But when I left treatment, I had no idea how to parent. I had no idea how to manage my own money, how to eat healthily. Just those 3 things alone that cause wellness. That's what we bring in. That's where I want to be the leading person in the United States that is training other recovery organizations to actually offer those things because it's not just about the individual, it's the whole family. How can we bring whole family healing? So that is where I'm at.
Well, and that's what, like, myself and the team, why we're so inspired around, what you're doing and all of our students, because this is really shifting a paradigm. Because we're more than aware, again, that the systems that they're broken and we cannot solve, today's problems with the same thinking that created it.
Right.
And a famous quote. And I think something that you highlighted that I want to just touch on really quickly here is, and I noticed that in my own life, right, and something that Christopher, who of course is our diamond coach and psychic, I mean, medium, is that we're always being divinely guided. It's just that most of us, unfortunately, don't listen to that guidance. And the paradigm, it's really strong. But that, when I think about my own life, and I think you probably recognize this, Dawn, and even just through your share, is that, most people don't make those changes until they are in that absolutely shitty spot where even if they don't believe in God or they don't believe in prayer, they start praying. And then there's, when the student is ready, the teacher is always there. So everything that leads you to this moment, even jumping on this call, has been perfect. And it's just up to you to now take action, because without action nothing is going to change. There's going to be no attraction. And so, you know and I love the fact that you mentioned Wayne Dyer, because of course I studied a lot of his work. And it's like, for me, I can recognize that it's like every book, that was given, every course, every person, even if that was a really difficult person, everything has been for, my growth and development, just as it has been for yours. And I think that's the thing, was that when you get to this place, because it's all about frequency. It's all about matching the goal, right? Because there's all these layers of these vibrations, these layers of frequency. Is that when you're now working on the frequency that you are, Dawn, making this massive impact, it's because all of these other layers, they were there supporting you, but you made that big decision. You chose you got uncomfortable. You're continually getting uncomfortable. And it's just that reminder that we're going to have to do the work, we're going to have to take action. We're going to have to, when we get that nudge, we're going to have to do what feels impossible. And like Bob would always say, whatever it is, whether it's purchasing a course, studying with a mentor, moving forward with that next project, writing the book, the money's going to be there when you need the money, but
Right.
that's how strong the paradigm is the paradigm is always a problem. So it's going to make it feel impossible. And the way we're programmed is to live from our circumstances. It's to live from the bank. It's to live from the hurt. We got to step away from that and do what feels impossible. But in the word impossible actually says, I am possible. And that's what you did. And that's what you continue to do. That's what's so inspiring. And we need more leaders like you because it's time to shift. It's time to shift this way of living and being that just no longer serves us. Because I do believe karmically, we are moving out of 3D into 4D, and that's why it's so painful right now. So this is my last question to leave you with, Dawn. And just thank you so much for being here. We're going to share your bio. We're going to share details around Dawn. She has an incredible course that we also want to promote and support anybody that's out there. And we want you to reach out to Dawn. We want you to reach out to us too and learn about, diving into this mentorship with us. But my last question is, what action step, like what would you tell that younger version of you that maybe at times stayed stuck? I recognize that in myself, stayed stuck or didn't take action for too long, or took some time to actually do something. Because I think sometimes there's so much unnecessary suffering. And sometimes if we stay in those dark spaces and those spaces where we're stuck, is life can take you out. I always think it's an absolute miracle we're here. It's an absolute miracle. So, what would you say to someone who is in that space of feeling stuck, who's not taking action? What would you say to that younger version of yourself now going through everything you did?
Oh, I believe that I would tell my younger self to keep putting one foot in front of the other. So I don't know if I've ever shared that I had Bob Proctor, somebody sent me a Bob Proctor You Were Born Rich workbook, and a couple of other things that I had had, even from Wayne Dyer. I wouldn't finish them. I would walk away from them. And that younger person, I want Dawn, that younger Dawn, to go back and just read the material. I didn't have to take an action at that point except for read the material. So keep putting one foot in front of the other and just complete it instead of running away. Because the running away is where the darkness really wins. That's where the fear wins. That's where we tend to hide because it's comfortable. Had I read those, had I actually just read them, think about the information that my subconscious would have picked up, and the teachers and the timing could have been different. I remember searching dearly, and here I had the answer, and I walked away from it. So we have the answers. Let's not walk away. And if you don't want to do it by yourself, invite somebody on that journey with you. Invite a friend. Probably not a family member, but invite a friend.
I love this because I think it's especially important to highlight this when we live in a world where there's so many distractions. The paradigm, and Bob would always call the paradigm the devil or like a nasty little bugger. The paradigm does not want to change. That programming, those patterns are so deeply rooted, right? And so, I absolutely love this because, it's you got to step away. You got to step away from the news. Like there's so many people that are so focused. It's almost like being in a soap opera 24/7. And someone who's even studied this material forever, I just see how easy it is to get sucked into that or into endless scrolling, um, or into again living from the outside in. Like even where I live, we never had a tent city. We barely had very few homeless people. Now, I mean, we just call it, we got zombies everywhere. And so when you understand the subconscious It doesn't know the difference between real and imagined. But whatever we focus on all the time, we're going to need the evidence of that. And the deeper you go down this rabbit hole and start to study yourself and study universal law and study the paradigm, is the paradigm, or you could call it the ego too, it's always looking for evidence. So if you're looking for evidence that you're a victim, or that you're powerless, or that you're alone, or that you're not good enough, whatever it is, you're going to get plenty of evidence right now, because it's just it's everywhere. But it's those distractions, and that's where we don't slow down. We don't
Right.
just do the work that we need to do. So I love the fact that you're highlighting that.
I
Christopher.
did want to I
Yeah.
did want to share real quick. So I learned something about the ego and my subconscious, and I took it from Sheldon from Big Bang Theory. So when I am trying to get something into my subconscious and my ego wants me to stop, the paradigm shows up. I actually do this like Sheldon did. Oh, he used to say like, "Oh, my beautiful brain." And I went, "Oh, my beautiful ego. Think about all the things people are going to say if we take this in." And try to shift the ego to move the hell out of the world and
Oh,
allow it in. It sounds crazy, but it works for me.
yeah, I absolutely love it. Christopher, is there anything that you want to add to this before we close this incredible session together?
I love Dawn as a person. Her energy's so beautiful and the growth, but I think a lot of people truly can connect with your story. And even if not obviously all of it, but those bits and pieces of things that they can truly connect with. And I cannot wait to see what your journey unfolds furthermore too.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you
I
guys
agree.
for having me. Seriously, I cannot tell you that my journey is completely, it really did help in starting with thinking into results. That was, I mean, even though Dr. Wayne Dyer's book opened my eyes, that was my action plan. And so thank you for letting me be here. And thank you for being my mentor in this time.
Yeah, and I'm just so grateful you're still here, because, it just gets better and better. And that's one thing that strengthens my own faith, is regardless what's going on, the laws work towards betterment. And, Bob was such a living example of this. Even at 88 years young, he was constantly the student, growing, studying himself, diving in and taking action. I mean, I think Bob had more energy in his 80s than a lot of our 20-year-olds have. And so when you start to, discover some of these unconscious limiting blocks and the negative habits, and you start shifting, of course, your story and moving towards big goals, it's really exciting. And it's, in a good way, it becomes a healthy addiction, that is really, being in service in a much bigger way to, of course, ourself, our families, and the planet. And so I know, Dawn, I've just seen you've just taken so many quantum leaps. You're such an incredible student, but you're also, and that's what we teach, in order to be a phenomenal leader, you got to be an intelligent student. And so you're just such a great example of that. And I'm just so glad you're hooked on this way of living and being, because this is where you're going to be able to reach a lot of people and share this knowledge with even your students, and then make a new model and something better as we move forward. So thank you, thank you, thank you so much for being here. So I want to encourage any of you that are watching this, there's no coincidence that you're here. I want you to, hopefully you are transcribing and writing notes. Maybe watch this again, reach out. We're going to include Dawn's links and ways that you can reach out to Dawn. You can reach out to us at any time. And we're also going to be sharing, a program that Dawn is going to be sharing, and we're going to be supporting her, because we're just, if you are feeling stuck, if you are dealing with any sort of mental health, addiction, anything like that, which, by the way, I think everybody has experienced. Nobody is not touched by this. Everybody, I know I have been too, is, there's no better time than right now to really start to create the order within and start living from the inside out versus the outside in, because that is the way that you're programmed. You're programmed to get sucked into all that, and it's an inside job. And once you understand the subconscious, it's really quite exciting. But it's at first, it's going to, you know, until you start working with somebody and reaching out and having some sort of accountability and mentor, it's going to be really difficult to understand some of these ideas initially. If you are living, and I get it, suffering is real, and many of you are suffering. I'm sorry. I mean, Dawn, myself, Christopher, we all have a story. We can relate to that suffering, and it's not it to take away from yours. But when you know you need to do better, you got to do something. You know, God gives us, creator, whatever you call that energy, spirit gives us everything we need to thrive, but it's up to us to do something, right? So, such an incredible conversation, and we look forward to seeing you on the next Diamond Insights. And thank you so much again, Dawn, for being here with us.